Hi, I'm Margie Holmes, psychologist, author, and educator. Today we will be discussing suicide. It's a sensitive issue spurring numerous debates and misconceptions. In fact, there are different models or ways of looking at this topic: social, legal, economic, medical, individual, cultural, and for today, we will focus on the religious aspect. This is what you said. Oliver Palumburit asks, what can you say about some religious groups refusing to perform last rites for the victim? Jeremy Bear answered, punitive. Is that still done? If so, shameless. Santiago answers, we were taught that the person who commits suicide goes straight to hell. I'm so thankful that even the church has changed its tact on that. Pitay Reyes Vitan shares a personal experience. A Jesuit priest performed last rites for my brother who committed suicide some years back. Our parish priest at Fairview Parish just wouldn't perform the last rites. I lost all respect for the guy since then. Trauma na nga, and your parish priest and church won't offer any consolation? Nothing talaga. Father Guido, who performed last rites for my brother, said none of us really know if my brother asked for forgiveness before ending his own life, and therefore it was between God and my brother. He stayed with us all through our trauma. Thank you, Pitay. I'm sure many people will be affected and healed by your story. Pitay's experience clearly illustrates, I feel, that compassion means congruence of thought and act. You know, it is not enough to just say things. I'm sure those priests in Fairview may have spoken of compassion, and yet they did nothing to help the family. They refused to even consider that he may have asked God for forgiveness just before he died. In my mind, not giving Pitay's brother the benefit of the doubt is another sign of not being compassionate enough. Trelly Marigsa comments, this topic is fitting for Holy Week. Isn't it suicide when Christ allowed himself to be nailed to a cross knowing he was going to die? Would we consider this a form of suicide? Adrian Weber Soler was very quick to say no, because he also knew that he will rise again. Maripi Lainez says, dying for a cause or for something you believe in is not committing suicide. Alfie Mela says, suicide in its simplest definition is killing oneself. So if a person killed himself, regardless of the reason, he still committed suicide. My view is, but maybe that's not so bad. I mean, sometimes suicide can serve a purpose. Remember the suicide bombings in 2011? There were several planes, too, that hit the World Trade Center, but another plane was supposed to hit the Pentagon, except those in the plane, the passengers in the plane, agreed that instead they would try to overpower the suicide bombers. So what happened was it did not hit the Pentagon, but hit the ground. Sure, they all died, but what they did is they saved hundreds of lives on the ground, and perhaps even gave other Americans strength and purpose when all the Americans were feeling down and beaten. Historians and philosophers talk about noble suicides, citing the examples of Brutus, Cato, Cleopatra, and more recently, Tibetan monks protesting Chinese oppression, and Mohamed Bouazizi, whose self-immolation led to the Tunisian Revolution and Arab Spring in 2011. Well, this would also include the Japanese harakiri, martyrs of the church, and yes, even suicide bombers. We may not agree with their tactics and even be frightened of their goals, but is not fighting for their beliefs and being willing to die for them a form of noble suicide? I'd like you to think about that. Of course, there is the opposite view. Many feel that these people who do, in quotes, noble suicide are manipulated by their leaders whose aims may not be so noble. For example, the kings and the landowners who persuaded many knights to be crusaders, Islamic leaders who persuade many of their followers to be martyrs. Finally, this poster below is one of those cutesy Facebook sayings, yet it resonates with many, including myself. I added it because I do think it resonates, especially during this time when there has been so many stories and opinions in the media about the current suicide of the UP Manila student. In this poster, I also added, while this may be the bravest thing to do for some, others who choose the other route, which is suicide, may also have the reasons for doing so, may also be the bravest thing they have done. I got lots of likes and the following responses. Tammy Tam, no exceptions. Only a deranged person would kill another or himself. No problem is too big. It's only a matter of how you look at it and having an ounce of wisdom to find options to solve it. Edgar Mendoza disagrees. How could we judge if we are not in their shoes? We only hear the words, and the word is not the thing. Or to paraphrase it, Thomas Kuhn says, the map is not the territory. Finally, Lorenzo Valenciano says, suicide is a matter of personal choice. It is not thought about only by the destitute, hopeless, or deranged, but also by others who feel tired of living. When the purpose of one's life becomes vague, then some people may commit suicide. It's their choice. Well, that's it for today. Next week, we'll discuss the psychological and more pragmatic issues of suicide, where to get help, how to tell if someone is just making OA or really thinking of suicide, etc. Send me questions and comments on Facebook, tweet using the hashtag AskMargie, or send an email to askmargie@rappler.com. See you next week.